What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Courtside Podcast here on the Basketball Network. I'm Caleb. I'm joined by my good friend and co-host Connor. Connor, how we doing?
Doing amazing. Once again, excited as always. Man, I know it seems like we just said a lot has happened in the past 24 hours. Well, once again, a lot has happened in the past 24 hours. In terms of players' health, in terms of NBA rankings, the final ones came out today, which we're excited to kind of dive into. But we kind of have an interesting division today with the Pacific. It kind of is like a division. I feel like they used to reign the West, but maybe not so much in the current state of things.
I agree, and I think the one thing I'll say about the Pacific Division is this is a division of a bunch of kind of proven stars, a lot of guys that have been in the league for a very long time.
Old people.
Old people, but hey, they're still kicking it. But before we get going into the Pacific Division, let's go ahead and jump into our transition three. So first up, the NBA ESPN player rankings that we've been going over, they finally released their last list, and this is from the best player in the NBA all the way through the 10th best player in the NBA, and we're going to break it down for you. So I'll quickly read through each one of these, starting at number 10 and working our way down, and then we'll discuss. So at number 10, ESPN has Anthony Edwards. Then it goes Kevin Durant at number 9, Joel Embiid at number 8, LeBron James at number 7, Steph Curry at number 6, Jason Tatum at 5, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at 4, Giannis Antetokounmpo at 3, Luka Doncic at 2, and the best player in the NBA is Nikola Jokic, according to ESPN. Connor, what's your thoughts here?
Well, my first one is Shai being 4th. Man, talk about I believe he was the runner-up in MVP, right? And you're saying he's the 4th best player, where people last year thought he was the 2nd best player, apparently. But so I thought that was a little interesting, especially having Giannis up there at 3. Especially, with the success Shai had, obviously, like I said, runner-up MVP. But another player I kind of want to highlight, Joel Embiid. Do you think Embiid stays healthy? Do you think he's a little higher than this?
You got to think so. I mean, last year he came in at number 3 in ESPN rankings, but I think the injury really did hurt him. If we're just talking about current state, no injuries, Joel Embiid's a top 5 player in the league, in my opinion. So you would have to assume that the injuries have something to do with it. One thing I want to call out, though, is my boy Steph Curry, still ahead of LeBron James. Let's go ESPN on that one. I think I felt like I got a quick dub on that when I saw that on the list.
Yeah. Seems LeBron still lives rent-free in Curry's fans' head, which
unfortunately he does.
Obviously, I think it's kind of crazy to see these two guys as low as they are. Definitely the past 10 years, it seems like these guys have probably been 1 and 2. The past few years, though, they've kind of started slipping down, which comes with age, which is crazy. We're talking about it just because it's like typically you start to see that around like 32, 33. LeBron James is about to turn 40, and we're talking about him finally slipping down the rankings, But yeah, no, shout out Steph Curry and LeBron, representing the old guys on this list.
And Kevin Durant's still there
and Kevin Durant too. Yep.
Honestly, I kind of agree with ESPN for the most part. Joel Embiid's a little iffy for me, but the one that I'm really big on that I don't think I agree with, Jason Tatum. I just don't know if this guy is the 5th best player in the league. He's top 10. I just don't see Jason Tatum as better than Steph Curry, LeBron James, Joel Embiid, or KD, to be honest. Personally, I would have him at 9, but I think they respect the champion, right? Just won an NBA championship. Can't really blame
best
the
player
guy
on the
there.
best team.
That's debatable. I mean, wasn't Finals MVP, right? But
what about Curry? Would you
there.
consider him the best player on the 2015 team?
I mean, maybe not on the 2015 team. I don't know. I mean, personally, yes. But hey, the 2022 team he was. But hey, I think they got it right in terms of the top 10 players are ranked 1 through 10, in my opinion. So great list. Good job, ESPN.
I feel like the top 10 had less controversy than the other two parts of the list did.
For sure. Yeah, I can't really fault them too much. Honestly, a little bit it's just nitpicking. These guys are all
Yeah.
super close, but
I think a lot of these players, you can make arguments for them being in different rankings within the top 10.
agreed. 100% agree. Well, moving on to the next piece of news, we got some exciting news, I would say, in this one, and that is Lonzo Ball has
Mm.
finally played in his first NBA action since January of 2022. I mean, that is over 2.5 years ago. And Connor, I would say he had a pretty solid stat line. I mean, 10 points, a rebound, an assist, a steal and block. I mean, just every single stat you can think of. She had 4 for 6 from the field, 2 for 4 from three, and a positive plus minus. I mean, I don't think you could ask for much more out of a debut for this long, I would say.
Yeah, no, definitely a heartwarming moment. Um, I feel like Lonzo Ball has always kind of been a controversial figure for I think a lot of different reasons throughout his young short career so far. But I think he came back in, hit that first shot, his that three from the corner, and the place erupted. Social media blew up about it. Just amazing. I feel like when the NBA community can come together about this.
Yeah. Exciting moment to see, and it was really cool to see the standing ovation he got. I know it meant a lot to him, but awesome to see Lonzo back on the court. I think injuries is just the thing I hate the most about this league. It stinks when we see some of these star players get sidelined, and unfortunately, that kind of goes right into the next topic. Kawhi Leonard is expected to be sidelined for an indefinite period of time to start the NBA season as he rehabilitates the inflammation in his right knee, which was reported by Shams. Just a tough blow for the Los Angeles Clippers and Kawhi. I actually saw a tweet where Kendrick Perkins just said that Kawhi should retire at this point with all the injuries that he's been having. I don't know. It just stinks to see, and I just hate that this is happening to him and the team again.
Yeah. He was supposed to play for Team USA, didn't work out because of this right knee. He had a procedure in the off season, which I think this is what, it seems like, that issue is what's bugging him, inflammation on that knee that he had surgery on. It's just a tough look. You just want players, to finally get healthy, and then it just seems like they get hit with something else, and I feel like for so long Kawhi wasn't one of those players, but then it seems like after his stint in Toronto, he just like his knees, his ankles, he just can't stay on the court.
Yeah, it's been a tough go around for Kawhi recently. And let's not forget the Clippers actually just signed Kawhi Leonard back in January to a 3-year, $152.4 million fully guaranteed contract extension. So, I mean, hopefully this indefinite period of time that they're mentioning isn't super long. But again, with these Kawhi Leonard injuries, we just truly don't know.
Yeah, well, and we can get more into this, throughout the podcast because we'll be talking about the Clippers later, but they don't have Paul George anymore to kind of fall back on. I know they might have a few other players, who you might want to bring up in that, if that happens, but it's just like, anyways, tough situation. Hope he can get back to playing quickly.
Agreed. And the last thing I want to mention was another tweet I saw that was really interesting. This comes from Kevin O'Connor, which is an NBA insider, but he actually tweeted that there's a strong chance now with this Kawhi Leonard injury that they might miss the play-in. And if they miss the play-in, that could give the Oklahoma City Thunder a lottery pick, which means in some crazy circumstance, if that lottery pick ends up being the number one pick, we could somehow see Cooper Flag on the Oklahoma City Thunder next year.
Yeah.
Probably not a likely scenario, but just an absolute crazy thing to see how an injury of this caliber can affect, generations of the NBA.
Yeah. And just so everyone knows like how this is possible, this is one of the picks from the Paul George trade, from what 5 years ago,
Yeah.
that the Thunder are still collecting from the Clippers. So yeah, if they do fall into the lottery pick, that pick is going to the Thunder, which is just crazy to think. 5 years later, the Thunder are reaping these benefits. Which, I mean, I think it'd be a little hard to see that happen. But like we have mentioned, the West is stacked. So, anything can happen. Maybe we'll see Shea, Chet, and Flag on the same team. Who knows?
Yeah, I agree. Well, with that, let's go ahead and jump into the Pacific Division. We can kind of go through each of the teams. So, just a reminder how we're doing it. We're breaking down all the teams in each division and putting them in one of four categories. So, we have contenders going after that NBA title, playoff lock, probably not getting the title, but they're definitely going to be in the playoffs. We got the play-in / bubble team. So, they're fighting to make those final spots to get in that play-in tournament and maybe make the playoffs. And then lastly, full rebuild mode, or they're going to be tanking for Flag. And I thought it'd be smart if we just went ahead and jumped right into the Clippers, because that's who we were just talking about. So quick recap for the Clippers. Last season, they finished fourth in the West and ended up losing in the first round to the eventual Western Conference champions, the Dallas Mavericks. They had a record of 51-31, and there's been some movement on this team, I would say. So returning core of Kawhi Leonard, but honestly, at this point, we don't know when he's coming back. James Harden, Norman Powell, Ivica Zubac, Terrence Mann, and Kai Jones. Some key additions that they brought in from free agency was Nicholas Batum, Mo Bamba, Derek Jones Jr. from the Mavericks, Chris Dunn, and Kevin Porter Jr. And then obviously we mentioned it, but had some very key losses, Paul George being one of them, leaving in free agency and going to the Philadelphia 76ers, along with Russell Westbrook leaving, Daniel Tice, Mason Plumlee, and BJ Boston Jr. Connor, with this news that we just received about Kawhi Leonard, I mean, this probably changes how we completely think of the Los Angeles Clippers, right?
Oh, I mean, 100%. Now, if this was back in 2017, 2018, we'd be like, they'll be fine because, they had Prime Harden, because they would have had Prime Harden, scoring 60 points a game. But the fact is, you don't have Prime Harden. You have, a James Harden who kind of is, more of a pass first guy now, doesn't really look for his shot all the time anymore. And he's shown flashes of him, scoring 20 points in a quarter, scoring, 35 points in a game, but definitely not as consistently as he used to be. I think it's pretty obvious his athleticism has kind of gone down as well. But obviously I think he's the player that they're going to have to lean on. I think without Kawhi Leonard, he is their best player. I think they're going to have to play through him, and just hoping some of these other guys are going to be able to step up, like Terrence Mann. I think they were kind of hoping he would be able to take a next step. But obviously I think the Clippers used to be a little bit more crowded at the positions he has played at. So hopefully, now that those guys are gone, hopefully he can, show what he can do just a little more. But I'm kind of concerned about the depth of this team at the current moment.
Yeah, I mean, Paul George is looking pretty good right now. If they would have kept him, wouldn't have been as big of a blow. But even then, Paul George is working through some injuries over in Philadelphia. I'm thinking about this Kawhi Leonard loss that we have. I think you hit it right on the head. James Harden, no longer that prime state. He's not the guy that's going to be going out scoring 40 points, like on a nightly basis, or there's a chance of him scoring 40 points on a nightly basis anymore. And I'm just looking through the lineup. I think that means you kind of have to shift everyone up, and then Terrence Mann filters in at the shooting guard position. So you would go James Harden, Terrence Mann, Norman Powell, Derek Jones Jr., and Ivica Zubac. That's kind of my thoughts of what we're going. And to be honest, that doesn't sound bad, but it kind of just sounds a little gross. Like, you don't have anyone that's just a full standout like you did when you had Kawhi Leonard. I mean, there might be guys that go off here or there, but to me, it just doesn't sound like a team who I would have considered maybe a contender or a playoff lock for sure. Now I'm thinking I might have to shift him into that play-in / bubble section with this news of Kawhi Leonard, because again, with these injuries that he has, we have no idea when he's going to be back.
Oh, I mean, I think if he's out for for the foreseeable future, and he's not coming back till, around the All-Star break, I think they're for sure a play-in team. Um, it's going to be hard for them to get into the playoffs. Like I said, this is not, a younger Harden, kind of a shell of what he used to be, because Harden dragged those Rockets teams. Some of them were worse than this team, and he dragged them, to 6 or higher seeds in the playoffs. But I just don't think he has that capability anymore. And if he has, he's been hiding it, maybe because he's been playing with a lot more stars than he has throughout his career. But yeah, not expecting a whole lot until Kawhi gets back. And even then, I'm sure as Kawhi does and his team does, he's going to be on minutes restrictions, and not playing upwards of 30 minutes for a long time if he can even get to 30 minutes, when he does come back.
Yeah. Just kind of for, knowledge on what James Harden looked like last season. Played 72 games for the Clippers and was around 34 minutes, but this guy is 35 years old now. I mean, last season he only averaged 16 and a half points and 8.5 assists. You could see kind of that trend of switching over from that scoring guard now to more of the pass first type of guy. So for this team to have any chance of staying afloat while Kawhi Leonard's out, we're gonna need to see some people step up in a big way. So that means I'm looking at guys like Terrence Mann, Norman Powell, Zubac. I mean, Batum's
Derek
gonna have to play
Jones.
some solid minutes. Yeah, Derek Jones is gonna need to come in. I mean, they might even be reaching down as far as like Kevin Porter Jr. Who knows? Like, honestly, at this point, they're just going to be scratching for anything they can just to see who's going to be able to step up and obviously not take the role of that Kawhi Leonard plays, because I don't think anybody on this team can match what he does, but at least just hold down the fort a little bit until he comes back.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely have them as a play-in and bubble team for this season, just since, we don't know how long Kawhi will be out. So right where I'm expecting them, and it's hard to imagine them doing anything more than that.
Play-in bubble team. Kawhi comes back earlier than that. I would say a playoff lock, but again, with that end up in the air, I wouldn't bet on it. Well, moving on to our next team, we have the Los Angeles Lakers. So that other team in LA, but they no longer share an arena. Last season, the Lakers finished 7th in the West, but ended up losing in the first round to the Nuggets with a record of 47-35. The returning core is the main guys that you've been seeing: LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, Rui Hachimura, and then a few of the guys that are kind of spot minutes here or there: Jared Vanderbilt, Gabe Vincent, Cam Reddish, and Jackson Hayes. Some of their key additions that they had was the one and only Bronny James. We're finally going to see LeBron James Jr. and LeBron James Sr. play together, and there's been a report that we should see that on opening night. They also drafted Dalton Connect, who I'm going to take a few seconds on later on to talk about him. And then some key losses that they had. Really, the only big one was Taurean Prince and Spencer Dinwiddie, maybe. Everyone else that they lost wasn't really a contributor for them. Connor, what are we thinking about for the Lakers? I think it's a cool story with Bronny and LeBron, but in terms of winning basketball games, I feel like they might be in the same spot that they were last season.
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty similar as what they were last year. We'll probably see somewhat of a similar rotation. I will say their offense has looked pretty good in the preseason at times. JJ Redick has drawn up some pretty. I'm not sure if you've seen some of the highlights with their plays, but JJ Redick drew up some interesting plays that seemed to work pretty well. But I think it's always hard to count LeBron out, no matter what age he is. It just seems like at the very least, we know this team is going to get to the play-in. And it just seems like LeBron excels in those play-in games, to at least make as an 8 or 7 seed in the playoffs. But yeah, I think hopefully some of these guys, they just play better, because it's not like they have, I would say, horrible players on this team. It just seems like they just don't play well. And, I feel like you saw at times, oh, this team, it kind of seemed like that they were going to turn the corner. And then it's just like they just fell apart again. Um, which, I'm not sure if that was the coaching or whether it's just, their players just for some reason just weren't gelling together, which you do see from time to time. I guess, we'll just have to watch this early season. But in regards to Bronny James, I think JJ Redick said, we'll see Bronny and LeBron play, this season together, but I'm not expecting Bronny to play, like, I don't know. We see rookies, they play early in the season, and then as the season progresses, they fade out, unless, they're producing efficiently and at a good level, which I don't see Bronny doing. But yeah, so that's kind of what I'm expecting him to maybe, play at first, but then eventually start to fade out.
Yeah, I agree. Bronny James has had, for lack of a better words, just had a tough time. And honestly, in the summer league and also the preseason, maybe there's some upside there. I don't know, but it's at least a cool story to see Bronny and LeBron on the same team. I am excited for the JJ Redick experience, I would say. I think it's cool that he got this opportunity to be the coach and, coach of the Lakers out of anybody. So I think that's going to be a cool story. And obviously excited to see what he's going to be doing there. The one thing with the Lakers is you have LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And for some reason, Rob Pelinka doesn't want to build a basketball team around LeBron James and Anthony Davis, in my opinion. I don't know why it is. And maybe I'm just thinking about it in too simple of a way. But when you have LeBron James, a guy that makes everyone better when he has the ball in his hand, why are we continuing to keep people around that need the ball in their hand to be successful? I like D'Angelo Russell. I really do. But does D'Angelo Russell really match what LeBron James is trying to do? I mean, the best thing about D'Angelo Russell is he can take the ball off of LeBron's hands at some points in the game. But I just feel like it'd be a better fit if we had a guy that could just consistently spot up and shoot. Obviously, they kind of kept Austin Reeves, and I like that pairing. I don't know how I feel about Rui Hachimura with them. I just don't know if the Lakers are really doing what they need to do in order to get this team to the next level. But when you have LeBron James, as you mentioned, like, you're obviously going to be in at least the play-in or the playoff conversation. The one person I want to talk to, and I'll pass it back to you, Connor, is Dalton Connect. So this was their first round pick, and somehow this guy fell all the way to 17 in the NBA draft. Have no idea. He might be one of the best steals of the draft, but Dalton Connect might be the most NBA ready player coming out of college this season, in my opinion. I mean, if you watched him at all in Tennessee, he was amazing, just lit it up, a great shooter. Can kind of get to his own shot, get to the spots where he wants to elevate and pull up. And we saw some of this in the preseason. I mean, in Vegas and in California combined, he was averaging a points of 18 points per game this summer. The shooting splits weren't crazy. I mean, in Vegas, he was around 41% from the field and 39% from three, but I mean, that's still good for a rookie, and I think that's only going to continue to grow. And can you imagine a guy like that playing alongside LeBron James? I actually wouldn't be surprised if we see Dalton Connect playing some big minutes in this upcoming year.
I'll say, I mean, I'm sure he probably fell just because, his age, he's a lot older than, a lot of these other teams and compare him to a few of the top draft picks. He's a lot older. He has less upside. While he is more NBA ready, I think in terms of potential, he's not viewed as having a whole lot of improvement in his game, if that makes sense. So I'm sure that's a big reason why he slid. But I think, like you said, he was an incredible scorer in college. And, he scored pretty well in the summer league. He's played pretty well in the preseason. But, with guys like this, the Lakers wanted someone who could come in and contribute right away. And so typically that means you're going to draft an older player. And Connect fell to them, so I think it was kind of like a no-brainer when he fell to them to draft him. But yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I think there is a very good chance he gets some significant minutes this season. Maybe he's their sixth man off the bench, giving them a scoring, um, relief off the bench for them. Kind of like how Tyler Hero did in his first few years. He was coming off the bench, scoring, almost, like I think it was like 17 to 20 points a game, depending on the season. But yeah, that's kind of what I view him as a really good sixth man, just coming off the bench, and being that guy, who can take pressure off of LeBron and Anthony Davis and give someone else a chance to score.
Yep, I agree. For me personally, I'm just going to go ahead and put them in the kind of play-in / bubble team. The West is so deep when you think about it. I mean, honestly, it feels like a 13-team race at this point to at least make the playoffs. And so when you put it in that perspective, a team with, this kind of stardom with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, but the rest of the group isn't that great, I just can't really put them anywhere else. But again, as you mentioned, if LeBron's in the play-in, he's probably making it to the playoffs as a 7 or 8 seed. So that's where I'm expecting them. But again, I think there's a lot of cool storylines with this Lakers team. As I mentioned earlier, JJ Redick, former player, now first-time head coach, as well as the whole LeBron James, Bronny James dynamic. Quick question for you. Does LeBron and Bronny drive to practice together? They carpooling?
I don't know. I'm not even. Does Bronny live at home still? I mean,
would.
If he does still live at home, I mean, I don't see why not. Like save the environment a little.
Hey, LeBron's house is going to be anything better than anything you could probably afford. Although he's making millions of dollars now, so he could probably get something
for where he was
nice.
drafted. He got a pretty good draft deal for where he was drafted.
For sure.
But one last thing that I want to say, I want to highlight Anthony Davis. I know you said, it's LeBron and Anthony Davis, but I think the biggest thing with AD is that people are like, oh, he hasn't been healthy, so he hasn't been able to prove his worth. He played 76 games last year,
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, he shot 55% from the field, 27% from three, which is not that great. But it's just like, I know we might view it as Anthony Davis and LeBron, but sometimes I kind of view it as LeBron and then, Anthony Davis at like another tier and then everyone else.
Like 1A, 1B.
Not even 1A. I think it's 1, 2, and then everyone else. Which I know Anthony Davis did score 24 points a game last year, 24 and a half, but I definitely feel like there were times in the games where he just disappears, which he's kind of been known to do that throughout his career. But, he goes against, I feel like, a all-star center, and at times it's just like, where's Anthony Davis? We talked about this with Ant Edwards in the playoffs. He just disappeared for stretches against the Mavs. Anthony Davis has a tendency to do that.
Yeah, I agree. Who knows with this team? Again, this might be a team where I can see they go after some of those guys on other teams that are, trying to go into rebuild mode. They might sign someone around the trade deadline. So that wouldn't surprise me, but I think we're both in agreement, play-in / bubble team. But again, if LeBron's in that play-in, you better watch out.
Yeah.
All right, well, moving on to the next team. Definitely the one I'm most excited about. We have the one, the only, the Golden State Warriors, as I'm repping the jersey right now. Last season was definitely a letdown. Finished 10th in the West and lost in the play-in, but had a record of 46-36. We got a lot of a returning core, but obviously have a key loss that we have to talk about. So returning is obviously Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Pajinski, Kevon Looney, Moses Moody, and Trace Jackson Davis. Some key additions that we had: Kyle Anderson, Buddy Hield, Lindy Waters, and DeAnthony Melton. And then the key losses is obviously, this one's bittersweet. My boy Klay Thompson is no longer a Golden State Warrior, which just pains me to say. But at least he went to the Dallas Mavericks, which is a team that I also like to root for. So it does help a little bit, but it was really a hard one to swallow there. So it's going to be tough not seeing him. And then there was also Chris Paul. He's no longer with the Warriors, now at the San Antonio Spurs, along with Dario Saric. He is now with the Denver Nuggets. So been a big offseason for the Golden State Warriors with a lot of moving pieces. Connor, how you feeling about my team?
I'm not gonna lie, dude. I'm not very high on the Warriors. As good as Steph Curry is, and I think they have some interesting, younger pieces on their team with Kuminga, Moses Moody, and I'm gonna say his name wrong. Pajimski? Yes, I did say it right. All right. I think they're three young players that I think are very interesting. But I think, like we've talked about, there's just so many other good teams in the West. And I don't think the Warriors made enough moves to put them in contention with the West. Losing Klay Thompson is going to hurt, especially I feel like just from like a mental standpoint, which I know these are like professional athletes, but Stephen, Draymond, and Thompson have been together for over 10 years. That's just like a hard thing to break up. It kind of feels like a boy band breaking up. But also just kind of like looking past this season a little, I think the Warriors have a lot of interesting decisions to make in terms of contract extensions. Kuminga, Pajimski, and Moses Moody, I think, are all eligible for extensions. And like we've talked about with new CBA, the salary cap being flat, I don't think they can keep all their young pieces.
Yeah, there is a lot that's looming over this year. Let me just go through it real quick. Unrestricted free agents. So after this year, they have the option either to re-sign with Golden State or go elsewhere. Kevon Looney, Gary Payton, D'Anthony Melton, Lindy Waters, Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, Brandon Brzezinski. He's not unrestricted, so don't worry about that. And Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody are both restricted, so we also have the ability to match. But there's just a lot going on in that. And then obviously Draymond, we got him for another couple of years, and Steph through 2027. But let me tell you something, Connor. Going into this season, before the preseason started, I was feeling really down about my Warriors. I thought it was just going to be another season. We're going to be fighting to get in the play-in. If we get in the play-in, great. Maybe we make the playoffs and win a couple series. I don't know. Like, that's the best case scenario. But then the preseason happened. And I know you can't look too much into the preseason, but as someone that needs something to think about and hold on to, listen to this. The Golden State Warriors are 5-0 in preseason. Let's go. Only one other team has not taken a loss. That's the New York Knicks. But listen to this. We lost Klay Thompson, and I thought that meant we lost a lot of shooting, which it is. I mean, it's hard to replace. But we brought in Buddy Hield. And did you know that Kyle Anderson can kind of shoot a little bit? Apparently he can in the preseason. Listen to these numbers. In the preseason, Kyle Anderson, 55.6% from three. Gary Payton, 50%. Buddy Hield, 48.4. Lindy Waters, 47. Jonathan Kuminga, 47. Moses Moody, 43. Brandon Brzezinski, 42. Draymond's even shooting 38%. I mean, Steph Curry's shooting worse than all these dudes in the preseason. We actually set a Golden State record if it would have been in the regular season for threes in a game. I think this team is actually going to be a really fun team to watch. Do I think we are a contender in any way? No. We don't have the ponies to make it to the NBA championship, in my opinion. But this team is going to shoot a ton of threes, and it's going to be fun to watch. I should also mention this team is actually kind of deep. Right now, projected starters are Steph Curry, maybe Pajimski or Melton, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, Trace Jackson Davis. But then we have either Pajimski or Melton, whichever one doesn't start, Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga, Kevon Looney, Buddy Hield, Gary Payton II, Kyle Anderson. I mean, this team has 11 or 12 dudes that can play right now, which is going to be great to see. I think we're going to see a lot of just moving pieces in and out, a lot of fresh bodies. So really deep. Just don't know if we have the star power that surrounds, only Steph Curry and Draymond Green, which he isn't really the star power that's going to, win you games. He's just going to contribute and make other people better. Don't know if we have the star power around Steph Curry to help, but this is going to be a fun team. And that's why I am going to be optimistic. And this team is going to make the playoffs. Give me a playoff lock for the Golden State Warriors this year.
Well, before I give my prediction, I think you brought up a good point about their depth. Maybe, we talked about last episode, maybe they make a play for one of Portland's veterans, in Jeremy Grant, maybe, or Robert Williams.
Yeah.
Who knows? I think they have a lot of interesting pieces here, and I know Portland is probably going to get rid of a lot of their players. But yeah, I don't know. I think.
Let me down easy, Connor.
I think you hit it on the head. They don't have the star power. As much as star power as Steph Curry brings, you just have a lot of. There's Draymond Green, and then you have a lot of like role players. I think Kuminga can probably be like a really good third option on a team. But I don't think he's like a Klay Thompson level contributor as Klay Thompson was in his prime. So yeah, I can see them making the play-in. But here's the thing. I think if they don't make moves, there's a high chance they miss the play-in.
Oof. That's tough.
But here's the thing. I'm expecting them to make a move. So I'm going to call them a play-in team.
Well, I do appreciate that. What I will say about this team is, we still have Andrew Wiggins and looking to him and get back into form, hoping that he can get back to what he was looking like in the 21-22 season. And then Brandon Podziemski was a bright spot last year. If Podziemski or Jonathan Kuminga can really get to that next step to where we're really considering, these guys can be a problem, then we got a shot to make some noise. Again, I'm not going to be, just irrational and say we're a contender, because that's not the place that Golden State's in. And we're just not in that, era anymore where Golden State's competing for every single title. But don't sleep on this team, because I do think, as you mentioned, if they make some moves or if there are some, guys that are surprises this year, we could make some noise and make it pretty difficult come playoff time. All right. Well, I know we kind of have to go here soon, so let's quickly jump through these last couple of teams. We got the Phoenix Suns. Last season finished 6th in the West and ended with a record of 49-33. They got the returning core of Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Yusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen, Okogie, and Bol Bol. Some key additions: Tyus Jones, Frank the Tank, Monty Morris, Mason Plumlee, Royce O'Neal. So this team has been making a lot of moves this offseason. Obviously, when you got Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, and include Bradley Beal in that, hopefully he takes a step back in the right direction this season. It's going to be a team that's going to be a force to be reckoned with. Connor, how are you feeling about this team? What are your thoughts?
Honestly, I'm feeling better about this team currently than I was last year.
Agreed.
Literally as soon as they traded for Bradley Beal last year, I am like, they are going to have point guard problems. Which, Bradley Beal could hardly get on the floor, but when he was on the floor, they had point guard problems. It was like there's no one to get these guys the ball, which I think what they added, they didn't bring in a star point guard, which I think was important, because they needed someone who can pass, who is not going to demand shots. They brought in 2 of those players who I think can contribute, Tyus Jones and Monte Morris. So I think those 2 guys were huge for them. Which I think Bradley Beal and Devin Booker are going to be pretty interchangeably in whatever position you want to put them in, shooting guard, small forward. But then Kevin Durant and Nurkic, at the 4 and 5 position, I think this team, barring any injury phenomenons like they were having last year, this is a really good team. I think they have that potential to be the team people were expecting last year. But, I think it might take a little ego checking on Bradley Beal's part. I think just recognizing he's not that player who's scoring 30 points a game anymore, you know. But I think they also have some pretty good bench players as well. They brought in Frank Kaminsky and Mason Plumlee. Royce O'Neal's not he's not a scrub. And then Grayson Allen and Josh Okogie can contribute when they need to. I know Grayson Allen played significant minutes last year. But I think, honestly, he kind of excels in either a sixth man or off the bench role. I think he's a great spark plug. Towards that end in the 2015 championship run Duke had, he was the difference coming off the bench. And then I feel like you just kind of see he makes noise when he can come off the bench.
You hit on exactly what I was going to say. So there was actually a really cool report that came out, and I can't remember who was the one that reported it, but Grayson Allen was actually the reason that Tyus Jones decided to come to the Phoenix Suns. So if you didn't know, Grayson Allen, Tyus Jones were teammates back at Duke when they made that NCAA tournament run and won it. And Grayson Allen reached out to Tyus Jones to bring him to the Suns, knowing that Tyus Jones coming meant that Grayson Allen was not going to start anymore. Like, Tyus Jones was going to take his place as a starter, and he was going to move to that bench six-man role, which I think fits perfectly for the Suns and also for Grayson Allen, just like you said. Tyus Jones coming in, not the star point guard. They didn't need that. They just needed a guy that was going to play good defense and facilitate the ball to their stars. Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, those are going to be your scorers. Also have a solid big man in Nurkic. Then what did they do? They addressed the backup big spot. Who do we need when Nurkic comes out? Who are we going to play? Brought in Mason Plumlee and brought in Frank Kaminsky, two very competent bigs that can play key minutes for this team when Nurkic either gets in foul trouble, if he gets hurt for some reason, they got him going. And then what did they do? They expanded on the wings. They had Josh Okogie, which is actually a really good defender. So whenever, you got someone that you need to lock down, you could throw him in. Bring Royce O'Neal in. Great 3-and-D wing. I mean, they did exactly what the Thunder did as well. They saw their needs, addressed their needs, and made their team better. And I'm feeling really good about this team. And then obviously Monte Morris coming in, backup point guard role. And one I want to mention, Ryan Dunn. He was their draft pick this season, and he is no slouch. He was known as being the best defender in college basketball for the past couple of seasons. I mean, this guy is lanky. He's not known for his offensive game, but again, I think I've mentioned this in an earlier podcast. The Phoenix Suns don't need another scorer. They need guys that can play alongside their stars that can defend and alleviate the pressure on the defensive end. So Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker can do what they do on the offensive end. I think they did great. I'm actually going to put this team as a contender, to be honest, because I think what they did was just about the best that they could do this offseason and addressing their needs. And this team's going to be scary on offense. And I don't think they're going to be any slouch on defense.
Yeah, no, I know we talked about this. I think it might have been our first podcast, but Devin Booker's defense in the Olympics, and how he set the tone on the perimeter for that team throughout the Olympics. I think he kind of heard a lot what people were saying about the Suns throughout last season, and after, they made absolutely zero noise at all last year. And people have criticized his defense his entire career, and I think he's finally taken that personally and is like, okay, I'm going to prove y'all wrong. And so hopefully he can carry what he did in the Olympics into this season. Which you can make the argument that, the competition's not as good as the NBA players are, but, those players aren't horrible, like they're representing their countries for a reason. I don't know. I'm expecting big things defensively from Devin Booker on the wing. And then, I think Kevin Durant, he's Kevin Durant, he's going to score for you. And Kevin Durant's a lanky guy as well. He can at least detest shots at times, from players, which I know he's a little older now than he used to be, but he used to be a pretty good perimeter defender as well.
Yeah, still top 10 player in the NBA.
Yeah.
So
I actually agree.
Where do you have them
with you? Yeah, I think I have them as a contender as well, dude. I like like we've been talking about, they address their biggest need at point guard. They have pretty good depth. Obviously, you have some pretty big star power on this team. I like them this year at least. So I'm probably, I think I'm going to have them as a contender right now.
That's what I like to hear. Phoenix Suns, better watch out, NBA. All right, last team in the division. We'll go through this one quick. The Sacramento Kings finished 9th in the West last year, lost in the play-in, 46-36 record. Returning core of De'Aaron Fox, Kevin Huerter, Malik Monk, Keegan Murray, and Sabonis. Some key additions. There was some big news this summer when DeMar DeRozan announced he was going to the Kings in a sign-in trade. And they also got Jordan McLaughlin. A big loss was Harrison Barnes, obviously left in a trade, but you'll trade DeMar DeRozan for Harrison Barnes any day. Chris Duarte, Davion Mitchell, Trey Lyles, and Doug McDermott. Connor, how you feeling about the Kings? Did they address what they needed to, or are they kind of sticking where they are right now?
I was a little puzzled by the Kings, which it's no shot at DeMar. It's just I don't think he's what the Kings needed. Like when you have De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis, I think you need a shooter. DeMar DeRozan's a great mid-range shooter. Probably you make an argument he's one of the best to be ever mid-range shooter. He's not a three-point shooter, especially at volume. Which De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis are not volume shooters from the three. De'Aaron Fox, I feel like he's from his rookie year, he's taken more and he's gotten better. He's a player who's improved his shot a lot from his rookie year. But I kind of view them kind of in the same, where they were last year. It's just like, I don't view them getting DeMar as getting better just because I don't think he fits well. Obviously, you're losing Harrison Barnes, who I have never really hated Harrison Barnes.
Oh, I love Harrison Barnes.
He's a player who's, he can play defense, and then he can score. And then they also got rid of Davion Mitchell, which, I feel like he was sort of being pushed out of this team after having a really good rookie year. Mm-hmm. They traded him. So I don't know. I just kind of view them as probably just around the same as what they were.
I agree. I have him at that play-in / bubble tier for me. With the Davion Mitchell thing, he was definitely getting pushed out, and that was with the emergence of Keon Ellis, I want to say was his name. Came in the league from 2022 and was a sophomore last year, and we really saw him emerge more at the end of the season, getting a lot more minutes and playing there. But I agree, like, DeMar is a good get. I don't think you're ever going to complain that you had Harrison Barnes and now you have DeMar DeRozan, no matter the fit. But you're right. I mean, every other person on their team is that shooter to surround De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. Malik Monk, Keegan Murray, Kevin Huerter, Trey Lyles. Like, those are all guys that can shoot. And then bringing in DeMar just kind of ruins that flow a little bit. Also, it's just one more guy who has to have the ball in his hand to be as effective and efficient as he needs to be. So that gets a little confusing for me. So I agree. I was a little puzzled with them. So it's one of those things where, like, I don't think they got better. I don't think they got worse. I think they're just staying the same.
Yeah. I think you hit my concern with DeMar right on the head. He's not a shooter, and he has to have the ball to be to make an impact on the game. I think he's kind of proven that, everywhere he's gone, in Toronto and Chicago. If he doesn't have the ball, he's kind of just there. I'm expecting a play-in. I feel like we just keep repeating ourselves, but I think it's just because it's highlighting just how true it is. Just the West is so deep, and they're one of those teams who just didn't improve like some of these other teams did, True. So I kind of seeing them finishing probably around the Lakers, getting into the play-in, maybe sliding in as an 8 or 7 seed, depending how their play-in games go.
The funny thing about this division is, as you mentioned, this used to be like the most dominant division in the league. And now it's a division where I could see literally the 4 teams in the play-in from the West being 4 teams from the Pacific Division. Like, we could realistically see the Clippers, Lakers, Kings, and Warriors in the play-in, which would be really crazy. But real quick before we jump off, let's just quickly go through our questions. So first one, who do we think is going to win this division? Second, who do we think is going to lose it? Last, who's our dark horse? I'll go first with the first one. Who do I think is going to win the division? The only team I put as a contender, the Phoenix Suns. I mean, again, we talked about it. They addressed their needs. They got better. And when you got a guy like Kevin Durant and Devin Booker on your team alongside Bradley Beal, it's kind of hard to root against them. So give me the Phoenix Suns to win the Pacific Division this year.
Yeah, I'm right there with you for all the reasons you just said. They made the most improvements. I think that team's probably going to start to gel a little better than they did last year. So they're for sure, I think they'll be the best team from this division.
All right. The team I think is going to lose this division. Well, this would have been different 24 hours ago, but give me the Los Angeles Clippers. With the news of Kawhi Leonard injury, I just don't know what that's going to look like. If he doesn't come back or if he comes back too late, this team could be too far gone and not make the playoffs or not make the play-in. So I have to take the Clippers on this one. It's just playing the percentages and the variability of what Kawhi Leonard's injury could look like is, we have no idea. And so I got to take them as the team I'm thinking might be losing this division at the end of the season.
Yeah. If you look back at history, and history often tells you a lot, chances of Kawhi Leonard coming back soon is very low. So based on that knowledge, I'm also taking the Clippers, but I will say I think it's going to be pretty close between the Clippers and the Warriors for me. But like I said, if the Warriors make a move to get someone, that will change. But if the Warriors keep their roster as is, they will struggle this year. But since Kawhi is out and I don't think he'll be back soon, I'm taking the Clippers because without Kawhi, that team, because at least the Warriors have Curry.
Yeah. All right. Well, that brings me to the last one. I'll let you take this one first. Who's your dark horse? Who can make some noise? And, who might surprise us?
The Lakers, baby. Like I said, you cannot count out LeBron James, dude. This man will drag his team to the finals if he needs to. But yeah, I think depending what JJ Redick does, maybe they make some trades. I think D'Angelo Russell's probably a little hard for them to get rid of because of that contract. And I don't think he's, really a high profile target to start with. But yeah, I can just see them, LeBron being LeBron, they could potentially, get a lot better this year.
All right. Well, hey, you did that to me, so I'm going to do this to you. Give me the Golden State Warriors as my dark horse. You say you can't count out LeBron. You can't count out Steph Curry. Steph Curry could have an MVP-like season. We could see the Warriors shooting at a historic clip from 3. I like this team, and the one thing that we've talked about, the Warriors have depth, and with depth, if there's an injury, they're going to be able to sustain it, and in years past, that hasn't been the case. I think the Warriors have a shot. I also think that there's going to be some players that step up big in ways that we were not expecting, mainly Podziemski and Kuminga. One of those two, though, they have to hit in a big way if the Warriors are going to be this dark horse that I'm talking about. But hey, I got to have courage and confidence in my team. So give me the Golden State Warriors. And who knows? Maybe the Warriors make a move, bring in another superstar, and you see them hanging a banner once again. Crossing my fingers, but probably not happening. But give me the Golden State Warriors as my dark horse.
All right. You know what? I respect it.
All right. Well, I think that's all we had for today's episode. Thanks again to everyone that is watching and listening. And this concludes our division preview. We've gone through every single division in the NBA, outlined all of our teams, what our predictions are, and we're just ready for the season to get kicked off this coming Tuesday. So you better watch out. We might have another podcast dropping on Tuesday going over all of our predictions for the season, who's winning the championship, who's winning most valuable player, and so much more. So make sure to stay tuned and turn on those notifications. If you're on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you're listening on any of the podcast networks, please give us a 5-star review. We greatly appreciate it. And again, that's Connor. I'm Caleb, and this is Courtside. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Peace.